Now it's been a rough 10 months or so. I think we all can agree on that. And for me, I know I have the bubbly persona and the happy Misha, but it's been a struggle. It has been a struggle as a single woman and a disciple for me, at least, with all this going on. It started out great. Anybody who knows me knows I've been busy. I'm always busy. Even when I try not to be busy, I get busy for some reason. But pandemic happened, teaching at home with my dad, my brother, especially my dad, built a fabulous relationship with my dad, did stuff, projects at home, all that stuff. Started off great, had a plan. I was good with Zoom and all the online stuff, and school was going well. And then the summer starts to hit, and the George Floyd situation happens. And I'm going to be honest, that rocked me to my core emotionally. It was a lot of back and forth with me as far as that. And I know, looking back at it now, Satan really used that as a divisive tool for me, as emotionally just dealing with all the conversations. Even when we talked about it in church, I had so many mixed emotions about it, so many mixed feelings, so much anger, so much hurt to see it happen, because in my eyes, I just saw my dad and my brother there, you know, and that was how I related to it. And just trying to wrestle with that as a disciple, and trying to have a righteous and loving response to that was really, really hard for me. And I think that's where the downward spiral, in a sense, kind of happened, because I was like, God, why is this happening? Why are we viewing this? Why are kids viewing this? Why is this world going through this? And so it just kind of snowballed from there. Like, I got tired of Zoom, because we quickly were on Zoom and stuff all the time. And it became to the point where it's so easy to get disconnected online. I see it with our kids so quickly. They are just there on a screen, but you don't have that relationship and that connection. And it's hard. It really is hard for me, as much as I am a people person. I like to be around people. I like to talk to y'all. I like to give people hugs and cook for people and do all those things and get out and go out to eat. I love food. That's the reason I'm the size I am. I love some food. And I love to go out and eat with people and just build those relationships. So it was hard, and I realized now that that was a good tool for Satan. Divide and conquer was successful in this person's life as far as being a disciple in my spiritual walk. About, August, September, we go back to school and we're still in this. And it feels like it's getting worse. And so, truth be told, I felt like just like, I don't feel like doing this. Truth be told, I don't really want to fight with this. Like, I'm reading scripture, but it's not really sinking in. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. And it becomes this daily struggle to really fight. And so that goes on through the fall. I deal with, struggling with purity, struggling with all these things. And am I being open with it? No, not necessarily, but it comes to a head. And I remember just being like, what is happening? Like, God, just like, why are we going through this? I don't like it. I don't like being on Zoom anymore. I would give anything to be back at the VFW with the cockroaches and everything else that goes along with it. I'm cool with that, God. Can we just please get up? Being at home and being stuck in this rut. I'm cool with spending the gas to drive. I'm cool with all of it. I'm just tired of being on this Zoom call. Completely true. I want a potluck so bad right now. It's ridiculous. And as I sit there and I start being honest in my conversations with God, like, not even intentionally, just like me driving to work, frustrated with work, frustrated with Zoom, frustrated with school board, frustrated with everything. Just like, why? And I feel like, looking at it now, I'm like one of my kids in 8th grade, just, why we gotta do this? Why it's gotta be so hard? That's how I feel like I am acting in my heart. And as I go through that, I feel like God kind of slowly starts answering that question, whether I like it or not. And anybody who knows me knows my mom passed away when I was 12. But I go back to the answer that I got when I asked God, I asked my grandmother, why did my mom have to die? He's God. Simply put, he is God. This is his world to do whatever he wants to. And that plan and how he's going to use that is not for me. He is God. He is all powerful. And no matter how hard that is to swallow, that's the truth. No matter who he chooses to put and take away from your life, that's the truth of it. He is God. Like my grandmother told me, this is her child that had just died. Her daughter she had birthed and raised. And she told me straight up, that's his daughter first. He can do with her whatever he wants to. He can take her and give her as much as he wants to. That's his choice. And it rocked me. But it's just like, Isaiah 55 verses 8 through 9, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, for my ways, not your ways. You know, for as far as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than yours and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. Like I can never comprehend why things happen the way they do. But going back and looking at it, if my mom hadn't died, would I be able to relate? That plan I would have never known at the time at 12 years old. And it wasn't for me to know then how God was going to use it. And so that's kind of where this battle and this Misha get back on your armor and start fighting again started. Just he's God. It's his choice to do it with his world he wants to. And as I continue with this conversation, I remember, I think it was about November. Markia might be able to help me with the date. I don't remember. I know Christina was still living in Columbus. That's what I remember. And I remember me and Christina and Markia, God bless those sisters. They are like my rocks. They deal with all my buffoonery and craziness and still find some kind of way to love me. To be quite honest, no matter what I do. And I remember we were having a conversation, and it's great when us three get together and we just, really, we start talking, being silly, and somewhere along the way, no matter what we're doing, it takes a turn for this is about to get real spiritual, real deep, and it's amazing how it happens. But we start talking about what we're all struggling with and the fact that we're all going through similar things, no matter what's happening in our lives. And I remember we were talking, and Marquia, I hope you're okay with me saying this, but we were talking about our struggles. Marquia just said simply, and it stood out to me so beautifully. She said, I want his love to compel me. I want to get back to the fact that God's love compels me to do whatever I need to do. And I don't need to follow the traditions of the world, the traditions of norms. I just want to follow God and his word, and I want his love to compel me to do that. And it struck me to my core, and I never forget it. And it's so amazing, these snippets of wisdom that God will give you when you're just being open with one another. And so that's how I've segued into, I guess, if you want to give today's talk a title, where I'm at and what I'm learning and what I'm trying to do. And I guess today you can call it back to the basics is what I want to talk about. I just want to go back to the basics. And I am no theologian. I'm not going to say I'm not super smart. I'm not going to say I'm not smart. I'm not going to say I'm a genius either, but I'm not like out of this world crazy smart about the Bible. I'm just trying. But for me, my first step, and the only step I have right now, because that's about as far as I've gotten, is asking the question, am I still in awe of God? Am I still in awe of God? And for me, that's where it kind of all starts when I got baptized. I remember being in awe with God the more I learned about him. To the fact that on my first spiritual birthday, the sister that had baptized me, Tony, asked me what I had been reading. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I've been reading, and it's one of my favorite books, if you want to talk to me about it, just because of these scriptures I'm going to kind of talk to you about today. But I've been reading Job, and I remember her saying, and what I was talking about, she was like, I love the fact that right now, as a year-old disciple, you're in awe of God. You're standing in awe of God. And so that's my step one, getting back in awe of God and being in awe of him, of everything that he is. So if we could, if someone wouldn't mind reading, could we turn over to Job chapter 8? And could someone read verses 1 through 11? If you don't mind, I can if y'all don't want to, though.
You say Job 11?
Job chapter 38. 38. Job 38, verses 1.
Oh, 38.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, I can read it. 38, 1 to 11?
Yes, ma'am.
1 to 11?
Yes, please.
Okay, it said, then the Lord answered Job out of the storm. He said, who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Raise yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth foundation? Tell me if you understand who marked off its dimensions. Surely you know who stretch a measuring line across it? Or on what? Sorry about my phone.
You're good.
Yeah, it's just my phone is the connection is not that great. I'm in verse 4. Where were you when I laid the earth foundation? Tell me if you understand who marked off its dimensions. Surely you know who stretched a measuring line across of it, or what will its footing set, or who laid its cornerstone, while the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind doors, where it burst forward from the womb, where I made the clouds its garment, and I grab it in thick darkness, where I fixed limits, where when I fixed limit for it, and set its doors and bars in place. When I say, this far you may come, and no farther. Here is where your proud ways held.
Thank you, Marisol. Um, I just, I love these scriptures in Job because God's finally like Job is going through all this hardship and through this entire conversation with his friends, asking why and what's going on and how faithful he's been. God finally answers him. The Amplified version says, "Out of a whirlwind, out of a storm, or out of a storm." So can you imagine getting answered by God out of a storm? And it says, "Who obscures my plans with words without knowledge?" Like, brace yourself like a man. Brace yourself, like, get ready. You asked for it, so get ready. Here's what I'm going to lay bare. And it kind of reminds me of like when you're a teenager and you keep challenging your parent, and your mom says, "Where were you when I did all these things for you?" And kind of brings you back down to humility and lets you understand where you're coming from and who is over you at that point in time, and who is your parent, who is your father. It's beautiful. He says, like, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation?" The earth's foundation. And it is so powerful to me, like, to think about that. This is how powerful our God is, our Father is. He laid the earth's foundation, who set off its dimensions, out of all the galaxies, the specific way in which he sets the dimensions for the earth. Out of everything, all the stars, the specifics of this world we get to live in. What I love the most is when he talks about the ocean. He says, who shut up the sea behind the doors? Like, who took this powerful thing that we can sit on this earth and gave it its boundaries and told it, this is where your proud shores halt, your waves halt. That you can't go any further than this. I set this down. I set this limit. Like, y'all just think about that. The ocean has destroyed cities, civilizations, and our Father is the one who set those boundaries. That's amazing. Like, the ocean gives life. It can take life. It provides life with food and nourishment. Like, so many things that are powerful and we consider powerful about water and the ocean. And our Father sets its limits. Like, I'm just marvel at it. Like, the next time you go into the beach, just imagine that. You watch the waves come in, and God's the one who sets those boundaries and tells the waves to stop. Nothing else. Science calls it physics and gravity and all that stuff. But it's God. That's just science way of trying to understand what God did and is doing every single day. Out of all the things, he's like, nope, you're going to stop right there, wave. You good. Mm-hmm. You 20 feet tall, now you're going to stop right there. We good. That's it. You good. Just sit down. That's kind of how God does it. Sit down. You're fine. It stops the waves. I don't know if y'all are in awe of it like I am, and maybe it's just because of where I'm studying and what I'm doing, but I hope that encourages you. If somebody could, we're going to stay in Job 38. I don't want to talk too much, but could somebody read verses 31 through 41, if they don't mind?
I can.
Thank you, Taylor.
I'm reading the NIV version. Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or lead out the bear with his cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you, here we are? Who gives the ibis wisdom, or gives the rooster understanding? Who has the wisdom to count the clouds? Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens when the dust becomes hard and the clods of earth stick together? Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in a thicket? Who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God and wander about for lack of food?
Thank you. So we start in 31, God says basically, do you bind the chains of the constellations? Do you chain the stars together to make our constellations? Y'all, he's talking about Orion's belt, all the constellations in the sky that we have astrologists study for hours out the day and marvel at us. If you've ever set some star and look at the stars and see how beautiful it is, like chain together the constellations. This hits different. Like, it is so powerful. It is so immensely powerful. I just think about how much goes into studying the stars. The Egyptians were studying the stars to make the pyramids and align them up with the Nile. Like, that's how powerful that statement is. Like, it's just amazing to me. And then he goes, in verse 35, do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you, here we are? The lightning that scared me as a kid is the same lightning that reports to God and said, hey, here we are, I'm here. I'm gonna strike right there, I'm good. Like, that's the same one. The lightning that scared my German Shepherd, which I thought was vicious, that lightning reports to God. Like, it is amazing, the power of our Father. Do you tip over the water jars in the heavens? Do you make it rain? Do you feed the earth? Do you water it when the soil becomes so thick and clogged, when the clay is thick and solid? It turns into brick. Do you rewater the earth? And the verses in 39 through 41, do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? Have y'all watched National Geographic lately? Those lion videos, those are the most watched. National Geographic movies are the number one thing ever watched in this world. We all are fascinated by nature. We watch it for hours and are fascinated by it. I know I have. Even my students, as tuned in on TikToks as they are, if I turn on National Geographic during lunch, they are glued in like they are watching a $50 million movie. No doubt. Who provides the food for the ravens when the young cry out to God and wonder about for lack of food? We've watched, bald eagles? Bald eagles, we watched bald eagles hatch their eggs. They put a camera on them. People watch it for hours out the day, just waiting for the babies to hatch. And God is the one that provides. God is the one that those little babies out to. We think it's the mother, the one they're calling out to. And I could go on and on in Job. If you have a chance, if you haven't read the book, read it. I know God goes on from Job 38 to chapter 41. And it's so powerful. I was trying to figure out what scriptures I wanted to use in order to really talk about how in awe I am of God and how in awe I need to be of God at all times. But just think about that. The next time you look at nature, I as I've done this study and I've prepared for this, even when I drive a school bus, I get to see the sun come up and sometimes the sun go down the school bus. And it's amazing to have the vantage point I do, because I kind of sit higher than most other people when I'm up there around and bouncing around. And I was driving the other day, and God guided me actually, because I wasn't paying attention to where I was going in the school bus. Y'all forgive me. But the sun was so beautiful coming over the clouds that I couldn't help but look at it as I was getting ready to start that school day. Like this orange, beautiful hue. And all I could think about was this scripture and these scriptures in Job and what God has done, the paintbrush he sets on our earth and the power that he has to do whatever he wants with it, to do whatever he wants with this earth is in his hands. And the fact that we get to choose and he gives us free will and gives me the free will to question him is still amazing to me, because that is also something to be in awe of, because he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to allow it to be that way, you know? I'm not gonna make us read it, but in Luke 5, verses 17 through 26, it talks about the paralyzed man and the faith with Jesus and them bringing their friend in. And at the end of that, in verse 26, it says, all that were there were astonished by what they have seen. And a rhetorical question for y'all, or if you want to answer it later, you can. But what has been astonishing for you that God has done this year? Even in the midst of this pandemic, even in COVID and all the things that have happened and all the heartbreak and loss, have you realized or been astonished by anything God has done? And while I say that, I look at my life and my mom, and I need to be astonished at the fact that she could have never been here. I could have never known her if the doctors had been right, but that wasn't God's plan. That's astonishing. How many times she was allowed to live when the science and the medicine told her it wasn't possible. And even, not to make light of anybody who has lost someone or anybody who is struggling right now or have somebody going through the fight of COVID, but even for those stories we get to hear of people who are not supposed to make it past this disease. They're on a ventilator 100% and they're not supposed to make it. The doctors don't know what to do. And then 9 weeks later, a month later, however many days later, somehow they pull through. That's astonishing. That's still God working in his power, and we should be in awe of that. Even through our hurt, we should still be in awe of that. And I know that's hard. I'm asking a lot when I say that. And that's something I challenge myself to, is to be in awe and being astonished of even the miracles God is performing through all the craziness. I told my kids today in class, I said, y'all, I know y'all hate these masks, but how many of y'all have had a cold this winter while we've been wearing this mask? Nobody raised their hand. Y'all, I am notorious, and Marquia can tell you this, for getting deadly sick in the middle of teaching. Bronchitis, pneumonia, almost every fall, because of just how much is in the schools. But to be honest, with those masks on, we haven't had kids sick with colds. We haven't had the flu, really. That's astonishing to me. We deal with very difficult situations, but that is a blessing. That is something that's very powerful, because that means these kids are a little bit healthier walking around this earth every day. We're not sharing as many viruses. We're being more aware of one another. And that's something to think about in a society. Selfish. And to kind of close out, I want to talk about one last scripture, if anybody's willing to read it. It's Romans 11, verses 33 through 36. Any takers?
I'll read if it's okay.
Yeah.
I'll read.
Thank you.
Okay. Romans 11, 33 to 36. Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments and his path beyond pacing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor? Who has ever given to God that God should repay them? For from him and through him and for him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen.
So everything is through him. Like everything we can think beautiful is through him, and that's what is astounding about God. That's what I'm working on staying, and that's the question I have myself daily. Am I in awe of God? Do I have reverence for who is my Father and all that he can do and all that he is and all he has given and continues to give? And so that's step one. I don't know if there's a 10-step system to this, or being to the point where God's love compels me, but I'm working on it. What happens no matter how things go, that's something that I have gotten a gift from God in this entire pandemic, is your relationship with me needs some work, Misha. And I'm grateful for it because now I can go back to the basics and be in awe of God.